Hello, I'm Henry, and I read a book. I read this book, The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, and I would like to talk about it, please. I know I'm a little late to the Wheel of Time party. A lot late, but better late than never. And I liked this book. I think the prose, the descriptions, the language, it's all chef's kiss. The world is massive and deep and textured, and every aspect of it comes together perfectly in one chunk of the book. That's not the chunk we're going to be talking about today. The way I see it, you can break this book into 4 sections, kind of like Act 1, 2.1, 2.2, and 3, but not really. From the title of the video, it should be obvious which section we're going to be talking about, but I think I should go over the others just for completion's sake. Section 1, setting up the normal world, is an incredibly important part of any story. It lets us know where the main characters come from and what they're used to, which lets us experience their upheaval with them when the story begins. Plus, it gives us a good idea of what the heroes are fighting for and what's at stake. But there's setting up all that stuff, and then there's this. There are so many characters in this tiny little village, and you know they can't all be important because they can't all possibly be going on this adventure, but they're all sort of pushed at you like they are important. Everyone gets a name, everyone gets a job, everyone gets a seat on a weird little council. They're everywhere you turn. There's nowhere to run. It sort of closes in on you the longer it goes on. And it goes on. There were times in this opening section where it felt like the whole world had lied to me, and this wasn't an epic story about a grand adventure, and it was just one long episode of Emmerdale. This isn't necessarily bad. The level of detail in this tiny little corner of a tiny little corner of the world is pretty mind-bending, and you do get a real feel of the core characteristics of the core characters, which they do carry consistently through the rest of the book. It's all just a bit slow, but hey, at least it doesn't have several chapters dedicated to the main character moving house for no reason. Plus it has this, I think, intentional parching effect on you, where as a reader you are gasping for something to happen, begging for things to start. And when it does, it's like necking 4 pints of snakebite on an empty stomach. It kicks off. Section 2. There is an attack on the little village. And it's wicked. It's dark, it's tense, it's scary, it's brutal, and you feel a physical helplessness at the character's physical helplessness. It's brilliant, it really is. And it sets maybe not the tone for the next section of the book, but sort of like the electricity, because this section rules. We've got lore, we've got magic, we've got swords, we've got towns, we've got inns, we've got a travelling party. We've got something here that, to me, as someone who is about 3/4 of the way through the next book in the series, The Great Hunt, feels like a distant magical memory, something that comes back to me through this golden halcyon fog. In this section, we've got forward momentum. We've got a hard goal, we've got a set destination, and we've got a real urgency in getting there. And it's all gone. Section 3. Our party ventures into this dead city. Basically, the people who lived there when the Dark Lord was acting up thought they'd fight evil with more evil, which is kind of like getting accosted in an alleyway, and the guy says, "Give me your phone or I'll stab you in the foot," and you proceed to pull out a gun and shoot yourself in the head. Insert Tony Stark meme. I don't know why I'm making fun. I actually quite like this idea. It reminds me of that town at the end of the first Ghost Rider movie. San Venganza? Whatever. They go into the evil city, things go up the Swanee, and they get separated. And so begins the end times. Now, I'm not about to sit here and get all angry and negative. It's not constructive. That's not what this video is about. And also, who am I? What I will say is this section drags. It drags quite a bit. Case in point, chapters 32, 33, 34, wherein our main character, Rand, and his golem, Matt, enter a village have a close encounter with the baddies, and escape. Enter a village, have a close encounter with the baddies, and escape. Enter a village, have a close encounter with the baddies, and escape. Enter a village, have a close encounter with the baddies, and escape. Back to back to back to back. Why? It's 61 pages of the exact same thing happening 4 times in a row in full. Why? It's not like one of those times where it's described in full once and then in a single paragraph of narration they say it happened again and again and nowhere was safe. No, it happens 4 times in a row in full. It wore me down to such an extent that I nearly DNF'd, though it wasn't this vortex of repetition that nearly broke me. It was something that happens just after. Rand and Matt finally reach their pre-established meetup spot, and Rand encounters this giant magical engineer koala bear. And the koala bear takes this opportunity to give us a history lesson on the world. It's 8 pages, and this is what nearly broke me. I was like, how dare you? How dare you make me slog through everything I've just slogged through, not to meet me with progression or re-establishment of goals, but a brick wall of lore. I didn't DNF. Took a breath, took a break, and I came back a few days later. And I'm glad I did, because this is where things get weird. Section 4. Mercifully, our party reunites. This is it. Things got a little bit rough back there, but let's get things back on track. Let's pick it up. Let's find some pace, and let's head off to wherever it was we were going. We aren't going there anymore. What? Because of something the big koala said. Because of dreams. Okay. I mean, who doesn't love a hard 90-degree turn in the plot 4/5 of the way through a book? It's, it's a little weird, but I'm good. We're rolling with the punches here. It's fine. The big koala joins the party, and we get some cool, compelling stuff on this new trajectory. We get sort of portal travel in an alternate dimension. We get this cool warrior society. We get one of the party being outed as Aragorn. Cool stuff. A party then ventures into the Blight, and the Blight is also cool. I was playing Elden Ring at the time of reading this. Platinum that game, by the way. And I had Caelid in my head whilst our party was venturing through the Blight. All red and rotten and poisonous and hot. You get the pungent feel of the place right away. So much so that it's almost tangibly uncomfortable. To read it is gross. I love it. The party meets an Ent. Also cool. I like the way he was like here and he had like a forest that sort of moved around him. I hope there will be more Ents in future books. And then we arrive at our destination. Our new destination. The Eye of the World. It's a bit quick getting here, maybe a bit rushed, but I think that's only because it took so long to get not very far in the previous section, and relative to that, a snail on Valium would look like Sonic the Bleeding Hedgehog. So this is fine. Totally fine. Good, in fact. Right, okay, so here we are at the name of the book. Exactly where we were trying to get. We have reached our goal, and I should say up front that none of what I'm about to describe is at all bad. And I could totally see how some people would have a wild good time with it all. But for me, this really is the point where it goes from, okay, that was a weird storytelling choice, to what is happening? To illustrate this, I'm going to need to illustrate this. The squad, Ent included, pulls up to the Eye of the World. It's through this arch in a hill. There is no one else around. The Ent immediately leaves. Alright, safe I guess. And the rest of our party goes through the arch. It's a bit of a corridor which opens up to the Eye of the World. This eye-shaped pond which contains half of the magic of the world. It's disconcerting but beautiful with this sort of creepy powerfulness to it. They look at it, then they immediately leave. I thought we were here to... No time for that because 2 baddies are here now. Back outside the arch, 2 blokes are waiting. We've not met these guys before, and the characters haven't met them either. I think the group they belong to may have been mentioned once, but these 2 as individuals certainly have not been. They are our final antagonists. Yay? Ding ding ding, the fight is on. Our Aragorn immediately gets dashed into the stone of the arch and lands in a flaccid heap. If that's not shorthand for dead, I don't know what is. Then one of our party charges in and gets choked out, her body cracks like a whip, and she is tossed aside like a crumpled rag, eyes staring, limp as if all her bones had melted. If that's not shorthand for dead, I don't know what is. And suddenly, the Ent is back. He sacrifices himself to kill one of the baddies in truly one of the most metal death scenes I've ever read, and then he turns into a tree. Right, head count. One baddie who came out of nowhere, dead. The other baddie who came out of nowhere, still alive. Our party is down 2, but that's alright. We still have our magic user, our Gan. Okay, I'm going to stop with all the Lord of the Rings stuff. If you've read this book, you can see the parallels. They are right there. It's not some groundbreaking criticism to point it all out. Moraine, our party's mage and the instigator of this whole quest, lets loose some fire magic and tells everyone to run. Rand, our main character, remember, does as he's told. And from his POV, we hear Moraine scream and then fall silent. If that's not shorthand for dead, I don't know what is. So we're running, and we're scared, and we get to this cliff, and what do you know? The baddie followed us. It's Rand, it's Aginor, face to face on the precipice. There's this sort of glowing rope coming off of Aginor. Rand sees it, and then teleports away. We are just dipping out of every situation. He lands somewhere miles and miles away in the middle of a battle, like a big army battle with swords and horses and stuff, between the forces of good and evil. Then, using more magic, sort of instinctively, like it's taking over him, he wipes out a significant portion of the evil army. Then he teleports away from there and into a vision of the past. Then he has this mind battle with the Dark Lord, who's sort of been negging him in his dreams the whole book. He sees his dead mum, he gets this sword made of light, and he uses it to beat the Dark Lord. The vision ends, and now he's back on the cliff with Aginor, except Aginor is dead now. And that's it, at least as far as the final confrontation goes. The falling action is just as scattershot. Rand is now in this zen state where he's sort of at peace with everything, but his memories are all foggy and jumbled. He gets back to the clearing in front of the arch, where he finds out that none of the people who were telegraphed as dead are dead. Some of the party have gone back into the Eye of the World, while Rand, still zen, straight up admits to killing both Aginor and the Dark Lord. He snaps out of it, then explains what I just explained with probably less confusion. Then the rest of the party come back out of the Eye of the World with what can only be described as an armful of MacGuffins. They ask surprisingly few questions, and then we all just trot off into the sunset. Okay, let's just take a breath here. I should take this time to reiterate that none of what I just described is necessarily bad. In isolation, each aspect of it is freaking awesome, but it all comes at you in this dizzying swirl of stuff, and you can't focus on any one thing or question any one thing before the next weird thing is happening. It's like boxing 3 people at once, and you're getting punched in the side of the head and the thigh and the kidney, and by the end of it you've got motion sickness and a broken pelvis. So let's rewind and go beat by beat, grouping some stuff together. The Green Man, that's the guy I was calling the Ent earlier. Him leaving straight away, only for him to come straight back 5 minutes later. He does give a reason for leaving, and I suppose it does allow him to have a hero moment, but it's funny picturing him just like halfway down the hill and being like, oh, I left my keys. Seriously though, it really does give you whiplash. And that's it, actually, whiplash. This whole climax, every weird beat gives you spatial and situational whiplash. Another example of this whiplash, the Eye of the World itself. We go in, we look at it, we do nothing, and then we leave. Then later, people go back in, where it then spits out all this really important stuff, like a horn, and a banner that does a thing, and half a medallion, and a kebab, and like a chair leg and a dog. And again, like the Green Man's actions before, it does make sense in world. Rand, in defeating the baddies, draws the magic out of the eye, revealing all that stuff in there. It wasn't there before, it's there after. It makes sense. It's just so strangely... paced isn't the right word. Spaced is maybe a better word. It's paced and spaced. It needs a stage director is what it needs. Let's touch on the villain situation next. Aginor and Friend. First things first, their character designs, the power they radiate, terrifying. You feel the good guy's fear, and you can totally understand that fear. That being said, they really do just T-bone their way into this situation. Like, who are you? Why wait until you are 96% of the way through the book? That's correct, I did the maths. Before you introduce your final bosses. I know they aren't the big bad. I know that's the Dark Lord Balsamon, which is definitely a Digimon. And he has been interacting with us since the start. And I know you can't have your heroes defeat the big bad in book 1 of 14. Like Rand thinks he has at the end, but I'd be shocked beyond all belief if he actually has defeated him. All I'm saying is have Aginor and Friend show up earlier in the story. Our characters have been harassed by evilness since the moment they left their homes, whilst they were still at their homes even. Why not have these two involved in some of that? Maybe cross paths with our heroes, interact with them, something. They're sealed away, and the fact that that seal weakens right at the end is the reason they show up when they do. But how about having that seal weaken a bit sooner? A tiny bit, so their essence, like a fraction of their beings, can get out. That way they can be a factor in the story while not being too powerful just to end the plot straight away. Death fake-outs. Genuinely, I thought the first two were real deaths. Lan, the Aragorn guy who got dashed into the rocks, and Nynaeve, the lady who got choked. I thought they were dead, and I won't lie, I was a little bit happy about it, because Nynaeve is truly one of the most foul, abrasive, wretchedly unbearable characters I've ever experienced. So when I thought she was dead, I was like, yes. Lan, he had some potential, so his death hit a little harder. And Moraine, well, her death is only heard, not seen. And when something's off screen, shenanigans are rife. Well, apparently shenanigans are rife on screen too, because everyone's just fine. Going to take this moment to remind you that Nynaeve's neck cracked like a whip, and she fell to the ground like all her bones had melted. You can see where I might have assumed some things. What's next? Teleportation. Imagine, if you will, Empire Strikes Back. Luke Skywalker is down in the bowels of Cloud City with Darth Vader. There's that iconic shot of both their silhouettes. Then, just before they fire up their lightsabers, Luke teleports away. He appears at the top of Cloud City and force crushes the stormtroopers chasing after Leia and her lot, then teleports into the past, into the body of, say, Episode 2 Anakin or something, has a sort of battle of wills against the Emperor who's there now, wins, then teleports back to the bowels of Cloud City, where Darth Vader is dead. Imagine that in the cinema in 1980. They would have been like, what just happened? I'm being an arse, I know. That was a terrible ham-fisted comparison. The point is, again, spatial whiplash. We've got so much movement and location shifting at a point where we want things to be coming to a head, to a finite climactic point. You want my advice? Of course you don't, but it's here anyway. Get rid of the teleport to the battle, just hand wave that stuff. Have Balsamon, the Dark Lord, possess Aginor, then Rand and Aginor can have a big fight on the cliff. He can banish the Dark Lord, and in the process, kill Aginor. There, we fixed it. You can keep all the dead mum stuff and the light sword and all that epic heavy imagery. Just keep it all in one place, please. Last thing to focus on is Rand's return to the group. I love Zen mode Rand, how he's so powerful, he's essentially a higher being, so he's forgotten trivial things like people's names and how to interact with them and how to walk properly. And it had some needed humour that I didn't know was needed, whilst also showing the significance of what he did. I also have no problem with him in this state blurting out what he did. It's everyone else's reaction to that and the fact that he's still alive that don't really add up. Him using magic to kill Aginor and yeet off Balsamon is a big deal because men in this world aren't really supposed to use magic because there's a 100% chance they'll go full-blown mental. That is very important, as is the fact that our party is split in two at this point, remember? A bunch of them have gone back into the eye of the world, so there's only a few people who Rand tells before he comes back to his senses. And those he does react like he's a man who can use magic. They're devastated. They think one of their closest friends is now destined to go insane and either be killed or magically lobotomized. Obviously Moraine, who is outside the eye, knows there is more going on here. My question is, why doesn't anyone else? Men who can use magic aren't common, but they're common enough for people from this backwards rural town to know what happens to them. Can any man who can use magic kill someone as ancient and as powerful as Agenor? Because that's what their reactions imply. If I was there, I'd have been like, you killed that guy. You killed one of the Forsaken with magic you weren't even consciously using. Well, you're clearly not just any man who can use magic then. You're clearly the chosen one. I don't know, I suppose I'm assuming a route of logic that we just didn't go down. And then the others come out of the Eye of the World with the aforementioned MacGuffins, and their reactions make even less sense. They ask him what happened, and he gives them like the most bare bones of a lie, and they just move on. It's almost comical. Rand says, word for word, "I ran and ran until I fell down a hill and hit my head on a rock. I think I hit every rock on the way down. When I came to, I was lost and finally stumbled back here. I think Agenor is dead. Burned. I found some ashes and pieces of his cloak." And they're like, cool. Anyway, like, shouldn't you be asking who burned him, how and why? No, we're just accepting that the man exploded of his own accord, unprovoked. Amazing. Well, that certainly worked out well for us. Okay, I hope I've cited enough examples for me to justify calling this the strangest climax I've ever read, because I really think it is. I can't say it was bad, because it wasn't. I can't say I didn't enjoy it, because I did. It's just weird. And now I will leave you with a true story that happened not long after I finished this book. I was down the pub with some mates, including the person who recommended this book, and he asked, "How are you enjoying The Wheel of Time?" And I said, "I've just beaten the first book." Beaten. I didn't mean to say that. My subconscious just threw it out of my mouth, but maybe that sums up this book as a whole. The Eye of the World is a bit of a Dark Souls boss, and if you look at it like that, it's got one hell of a weird final phase. Hello, thanks for getting to the end of the video. I know if you're familiar with my content in other places, this may seem a little off center, but I hope you liked it anyway. Not sure how frequently I'll be uploading to this channel, but I plan on certainly working on videos for it in the background of everything else. So yeah, drop us a like if you liked. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and have a little subscribe if you want more book stuff. Thanks. See ya.